Hello, everybody. My name's James. Welcome to episode 18 of Planet FPL Correspondent Week. And me and Neil Grover need to get the elephant in the room out into the conversation very, very quickly. We're talking Bournemouth today. How are you, Neil?
Wonderful as ever. Thank you for having me back for another year.
Let's timestamp this. 7:09 p.m. exactly on Thursday, August the 8th, just gone 7:10 p.m. actually. And I'm not going to beat around the bush about this because we do our season expectations. What do you think about your manager? None of this exists without the conversation really about Dominic Solanke. He's obviously been heavily linked with a move to Tottenham. Bournemouth, I think it's very clear, have their asking price. Don't want to sell unless that's met. No smoke without fire, though. I think we do realise that there's, even if it's just intermediary at the moment, there is some form of dialogue between Tottenham and Dominic Solanke's agents might even be just that at this stage. Something's happening, though, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah, like you said, there's no smoke without fire. I think we're kind of doing the little dance at the moment of perhaps more Tottenham friendly media being like saying one thing and then maybe our media saying another thing. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, like you say, where we're probably at a stage where you or a representative of Tottenham has spoken to Dominic and he's gone, of course, why would I not be interested in a move to a big six club? And I think all it will come down to, as you said, is we've got the £65 million asking price today, and I think that's what it's going to come down to. I've said in a few places, I think it's a release clause, so we would have to sell at that. But I think this is a big deal for us beyond the fact it's £65 million. Obviously, that's a huge amount for Bournemouth, but it's a big deal because what it signifies is it would be the first sale of the new ownership to another big club. So while we've done lots of, really shrewd, I think, inbound bits of business, we've yet to make a big sale. This is the first, or could be the first, and therefore I think Foley sees it as a yardstick, much like everyone always says, "Oh, the Brighton model."
Yeah, yeah.
They have a price and they stick to it. Okay, they maybe a little bit of negotiation, but generally you know what the price is, and that's what, if someone's going to pay it, that's what they're going to have to pay. I think that's what we're trying to do.
And that's all perfectly reasonable and fair, mate. I think we quite like what we've seen from your ownership since it's come into the football club. I'd say that from a neutral opinion. I think you're very happy with what's happening as well. He's very open
Yep.
and honest in terms of his plans for the football club, and also I think realistic about his expectations. He has high targets, but he's not going to go mad and do it overnight. He knows there's a progression of what the football club wants to do.
Yeah. No, 100%.
What's your instinct for a fan perspective? What's your instinct here?
On if he stays or goes.
Hmm.
I think I think he, at this point, just because of the fact that Ivan Toney exists and he's likely to be at a cheaper price, regardless of the fact that I think Solanke would fit you better.
100% agree with that.
I think just your MO as a club is that if there is a cheaper option that is maybe equally good in terms of how people would view it, I think that's the option you go down. Obviously with bias, I hope that's what you do. But equally, in the event that he goes and we get 65 million, I have absolute confidence that we will spend pretty much all of that because there's no PSR worries or anything like that that's at play here. We would pretty much have carte blanche to kind of do whatever the heck we want with that money. And that, that excites me with some of the transfers we've made, again, since Foley's come in.
Yeah, I think you're realistic to know what you are as a football club and stuff, right? I mean, if we were sitting here now and Man City's putting a bid on the table, it feels like a certainty. And I think you're shrewd enough to realise that there's every chance, even with a lot of respect to Bournemouth, that Solanke may well want to make the move.
Yeah.
It does feel like it's probably in Tottenham's court what happens here. You've got to meet what you do. If they do, it's probably going to happen. There's been a little bit of links today with Toney. I don't think Tottenham want Toney. I think it's possibly part of a look. Well, if you're not ready to negotiate Bournemouth, we might step away. But I think what you're saying is the Bournemouth viewpoint on it is we'll go away because we don't want to sell the football player. So we're quite happy. But I don't think you're
Yeah,
going to get stuff like this happens. And it might be that Tottenham do turn to Tony because we don't know with any certainty that Dominic Solanke does want to go to Tottenham. He might be thinking, I want to hold out for make sure I get Champions League football if I move, for example. We don't know that. We're assuming at this stage. He does feel like
yeah,
it's in Tottenham. He does largely feel like if Tottenham come up with something that's good for Bournemouth, it'll probably happen.
yeah. I think where we sit at the moment is Tottenham have gone to Bournemouth and said how much, and we've gone, it's 65 million. That's what or whatever the clause, that's what the rumored bracket of the clause is. You've got to pay it. And I think there may be a situation where there's, we get near enough there, and then there's some payments and maybe a sell on or a loan or something that comes back. There's been all sorts of ways of, to slice the pie. But I think that's what if it's going to happen, you're going to need to get near that number. And like you said, I think the ball is in Tottenham's court. I just hope if it's going to happen, it happens sooner rather than later, so that we can replace him, because ultimately we would need to do that. I don't think the replacement is currently in the squad. As much as I really like Unal and Jebbison, who we'll talk about later, I'm sure, but they are not Solanke. I don't think another Solanke exists, frankly, but they're not going to be that player.
No, and I think it's worth saying as well. But what year did you buy Solanke?
Oh gosh,
About 4 years ago now, 4 or 5?
more than that.
Oh,
He was
really?
yeah. So we bought him. I have transfer marked up in front of me. 2019, so 5 years ago.
Wow. And it's only really, I think, look, he's been good for you for a good few years now, but certainly didn't hit it off straight away, despite
No.
a big reputation, really. This was under 20 World Cup, a player of the tournament.
Yeah, yeah.
When he was still at Chelsea, obviously moved to Liverpool, didn't quite work out. You had a succession of players that you bought from Liverpool, and none of them particularly seemed to work out, which at that point included him. And he's only really from a goal scoring perspective at this level, only really the last season really hit some top numbers. And actually, I think it's only sort of people like Watkins almost hit it a little bit last year because of Watkins' form, for example, the amount of assists Watkins got with it. Maybe that from a fantasy perspective as well. The price to me, Neil, is fair. I
Mm.
don't have a problem. Like, I don't think you're 65 million. I don't think you're taking the piss at all because I think he's absolutely ideal for us. I said on a pod earlier this week that I'd rather Tottenham paid 60-ish for Solanke than 40-ish for for Tony from Brentford. That's how I feel because I just think he would suit us down to the ground. Because I think as an all-round striker, you're not buying the best number 9 in the world, but you're buying a forward who's got quality all over his game.
He's a genuine complete forward, in terms of he has the motor, so he will chase it down. He really leads that sort of press from the front. As you know, we've seen it. I forget who it was against. I want to say it was against West Ham, where he won the ball basically because they were fannying around on the edge of the box, and
Right.
he won the ball. And was it Brighton? Okay,
Brighton away,
I
I
know.
think.
Yeah, and just put it in because he was leading that press from the front. He's
And
shown
he
now
scored
that
a goal blocking off a goalkeeper at Newcastle as well.
yeah. So again, he's done that multiple times. He's now shown this year he can score different types of goals. So we've seen, genuine creating goals where he's gone round a few defenders and put it in. He's scored, with his head against Forest as an example. He can just do the little tap-ins and all of that sort of stuff as well, and he can take penalties. So, in terms of all of that, what more do you want? And he's only 26. He'll be 27 in the season.
He's
He's
27
English as
now, isn't he,
well.
Neil? I think.
No,
Sure.
I think it's September.
Okay.
September. Yeah, 14th of September. So
Okay.
he will be at the start of next season. He'll be 27. So yeah. I mean, I don't know what more you want. Plus, we have got to pay Liverpool a slice of the pie as well.
Yeah, it's going right these days. You want a proven quality
Yeah.
player in this league who's like ideal age. You got to pay it. I think My instinct is that it will probably happen, but I suspect you're not going to, the FPL, oh, really, going to get him for Tottenham or whatever. I suspect it might be something that drags beyond game week 1 even. Certainly doesn't feel, I mean, we've timestamped the podcast. It doesn't feel like it's something that's going to happen before this weekend. Antonio Iraola said earlier in the week, because he missed last weekend's game with a reported toe injury, which also made people quite suspicious. But he said, no, definitely play against Girona at the weekend. If you didn't play against Girona this weekend for yourselves, that's going to make people doubly suspicious again. Something might happen before game week 1, but I don't think it's going to happen this weekend. So I think you're going to have to wait. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a late one, because you know how we work and operate. You will try and do the best deal for yourselves, and you don't want to budge because it's your first big sale if it happens. And you know that the way my chairman operates, that he's not going to budge either, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it might
it's
go late.
exactly. And then actually, we've started. There's been a few little whispers today of us starting to look at European replacements, because I think that's what we'll do. I know there's been a lot of talk about sort of Cameron Archer and some of the other players in the league. I don't suspect that's what we would do. I think we'll end up with someone that plays for Genoa or someone like that people in the UK have probably not heard of. That's the sort of signing I would expect us to pull off.
You won't have heard it because it's not been released at the time of the recording, but I threw John Duran's name in
Yeah,
as the sort of one you might go for.
yeah.
If you don't start looking, it's not say you're resigned to losing, but if you don't start looking, you're not doing your diligence properly, right? Because you know
100%,
there's a chance.
and being the they've known since January that this is a possibility. I mean, frankly, they've known before that, but the narrative started in January. We started to see Foley being like, "Well, I'm going to lock the door of this window," but I think there's been a realization that this is the business model that Bournemouth want to follow. Okay, as a fan, do we like saying our star players go? Of course not, but in order to keep buying people like Huijsen and those sort of players, Abani and all of those guys, you need to have 3 in 1 out almost, and that's the Brighton model, right? So we need to get comfortable that every summer one of them is going to go. Unfortunately, I'd love to see them all do fantastically well and drive us onto Europe, but that's not necessarily realistic.
No, you
for
know
our size of
realistic what
club.
you are, and you know what? Maybe the football club will get to a foot in 1 point in a new stadium, etc.,
Mm-hmm.
where that sort of thing doesn't necessarily need to happen. It doesn't need to happen now, as we said, but it is unfortunately there's a food chain, isn't it, from a player's perspective?
You've got the other thing that, again, PSR isn't an issue and all of that, but if you're trying to attract these young players that are perhaps at these academies of Barcelona, Juventus, as with Huijsen, you need to be able to show them that there is a progression that they can make. Now, again, I would love it that we can say, well, we can offer you Champions League football if you stay with us in 3 years, but that isn't realistic or likely. This isn't Football Manager, but if we can show that we'll give you a platform and we won't stand in your way as and when you develop, I mean, it's win-win for everyone. As I said, we bought Solanke, as I'm sure fans have all heard us chanting about 20 million down the drain, and we're going to sell him potentially for 65 million, 45 million pound profit for a transfer that until last year was pretty much poo-pooed by everyone, right?
I'm going to ask 2 questions. One you'll like, one you won't like.
Okay.
If he moves to Tottenham,
Mm-hmm.
do you want him in FPL? Or is it like, piss off, you bastard?
No, I mean, I still think he's a fantastic asset. It doesn't change my thoughts on him as a player in terms of all of those positive assets that we spoke about. I think it would need, presuming if you're going to pay 65 million, he's going to start, because you're not going to spend that for a bench player, and he's going to be your Harry Kane replacement. You can't replace him, but that's essentially what you're buying him for. Then, I mean, at 7.5 million, okay, there would be an increase because everyone would buy him, but yes, please.
And the second question is, what if he stays?
He's in my team right now. If he stays, I think we will surprise more than a few more people this year, I think, in terms of where we finish.
So I had him in mind for a couple of days because I might be looking at something sort of 1 week. So look, the opening day fixture at Nottingham Forest has got a hat-trick in last season, right? So I know his consistency and his quality, and I just think for players, sometimes you have that feel, I scored a hat-trick last time I was here. These sort of things do matter for players, I think. That's the dog. And obviously, at the same time, if he did move to us in the next couple of days, he starts at Leicester on the Monday night. It's also a good fixture. So either way, I'd be quite interested. But the conclusion I came to as the week passed on, because it was a feeling, I think, sort of Monday, Tuesday, that something might suddenly happen, like quickly. Now it doesn't feel that way. The conclusion I came to was that he'd probably have to move to Tottenham in the next 4 or 5 days for me to start with him, because I'd need the clarity that he's going to start for Tottenham. Whereas for yourselves, could something happen on the Friday where it's like, you're not playing tomorrow now? I wouldn't need it for me going for a 1 week. I wouldn't need that sort of thing as a headache. So I almost come to the conclusion that for me, looking at 1 week, I couldn't start with him. Then suddenly it feels like a chunk of money where something might change, because you might think, well, he's great at Bournemouth, and even if he goes to Tottenham, he'll be great. But it might be a period, if it say didn't happen till say right at the end of the window, there might then be a period of grace where he's getting phased into the Tottenham team if he moves. That makes sense. And then you're in a
Yeah.
limbo. So it almost feels to me like either there's got to be Tottenham go somewhere else, Tottenham sign him, or there's some sort of clarity from him and Bournemouth. I'm definitely staying.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I get that.
otherwise, I don't feel like I can start with him. I'd love to, almost in either circumstance, Neil. Actually,
Yeah. Yeah, I can appreciate that, and you know that you we always want clarity in FPL, right? Because the last thing you want is a player that either comes on. I mean, we've all had the worst case where someone comes on for 5 minutes at the end. I don't think that would happen in this instance, but yeah, I mean, I do think that unless, like you said, something happens on that Friday night, I suspect he would play if available, just because again, a good start is going to be invaluable to Bournemouth, even if there is a chance he will then move on. I mean, frankly, would would Bill Foley be that upset if he went out against Forest and just picked up a little knock and then, oh no, sorry, you can't suddenly go? I don't know, but you know, I think he would play unless it happens literally last minute.
did you listen to the pod with Mark Subbins?
I've listened to bits of the correspondent week. Obviously, you put out a huge amount of content, as you always do. So I've listened to bits, but I don't think I've listened to him.
Because I asked him about Solanke. I drop it in as a mention because of obviously the hat trick in the fixture last year. And Mark's opinion was that he wouldn't play either way. He was like, well, even if he's still at Bournemouth, it might be a bit dodged. I've got a feeling he won't play. What I'm saying is
Bournemouth, he'll play.
that's how a neutral might be reading the situation. I disagree
Sure.
actually, because I think if it's not done, I think he's the type of character and you're the type of club. Get on with it, and I think he'll probably play. But
I agree.
But I also don't feel like I'd need that as an FPL headache.
No, no. One other thing, just with the Forest thing, is they're and he wouldn't thank me for this, but they are sort of not the anti, but we're their bogey team as well, particularly at the Forest at the City
There's a
Ground.
load of FPL managers out there captain Solanke against Forest in February, Neil. That didn't go quite so well. In fact, I don't even think he had a shot.
Nah, well, yeah, but I'm talking away
Okay.
at the City Ground. Like,
That's what,
yeah.
that's what I said. Some players have a feel for certain grounds and tend to do well at them. Right, let's move on a little bit for now because it is very much up in the air. My conclusion
Mhm.
on that is you probably can't have Dominic Solanke unless you are very confident that he would stay or something becomes clear. I don't want this to be a Dominic Solanke podcast. I just want him to sign for Tottenham. Right, season expectations, Neil. Good first season, I think it's fair to say, under Andoni Iraola. Every time we speak, we kind of seem to hark back to those first 10 games of last season where it looked fairly doomed. I think a lot of people are very impressed with him. Um,
Mhm.
Ironically, Neil, people will start looking at him as a manager as well. I think you're probably aware of that because he's doing very well. What's the expectations for the club now, though?
So the way that we've been sold it as a fan base is that it's going to be slow, constant progression. I don't expect a sudden jump, but where I would expect, so obviously we narrowly missed out on that top half finish. I think that's the aim this year is can we get ninth or 10th? I mean, I think if Solanke stays, I think eighth isn't beyond the realms of madness. Particularly if we do sign one or two, more recruits for the first 11, which I think we will do. We're not done. So I think we'll be in that sort of 8th to 11th bracket is where I have us. That's my expectation, and I would love a cup run. We've been. It's been years since we've had a real, particularly FA Cup. We've just never seemed to get going in it.
Used to annoy me a lot under Eddie Howe. I remember one year you were so safe. You were sort of mid, like you might have even been top half. I remember you going to Millwall and losing 3-0 in the third round of cup, and he
Yeah,
changed the whole team. I was like, "What are you doing? What's your point? You're not going to go down. Give it a go."
I mean, I've got a lot of time for Eddie Howe,
Of
but
course.
my word, if there was one criticism I have of that man, it is he just didn't care about the cups. He just had no time for them. Whereas I do think Iraola wants to do well in them. It's just again we've got that rotation and all of that always happens. I think we've been a little bit unlucky with some of the draws at times as well, but I don't know. As a fan, I want to. There's no reason a club in our position shouldn't be having a go at the FA Cup, and you just hope you don't get City away.
No, I don't think any of us neutral wise think, oh, Bournemouth go down this year. I don't think anybody
No.
particularly thinks that at the moment. And listen, I get it. If you're in the mire and you're in trouble, it's perhaps a headache that maybe you don't particularly need. But it's also like if you start winning games in that competition and you're struggling to win games in the league, it can breed confidence and stuff. I never quite understand it. Early rounds of the League Cup, I know you need to get minutes into people a lot more and stuff like that.
Mm.
Yeah, it really pisses me off, particularly with the FA Cup, actually. I don't think those expectations
And frankly,
I'm just going to say, I don't think those expectations are beyond possibility at all, Neil. It's not
no, I don't.
outlandish.
And I do think, frankly, going back just on one last point on the cups, it's probably our most realistic route to Europe. And again, if we're in that mid-table mentality, why not, right? We're not going to crack the top six. That would be outlandish. We would need it. We need to have that cascading. But if you win the FA Cup or the League Cup, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah. By the way, if people think they can hear something screaming, it's just my wife and my son. Just they're back from a little holiday and they're a bit excited. Daddy's still working, husband's still working. Can you hear that, Neil?
A little bit, but not.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's not like right there.
Means someone else can hear it. Whatever, the usual shit in the Linden household. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll tell you now, Neil. Only one correspondent picked you to go down. I'm very surprised that happened, actually. The majority of correspondents have you sort of 11th, 12th, average predictions like 13th, basically.
Sure.
In terms of an overall league placing, you'd probably average out at 12th. So it's very reasonable to aim just a little bit higher than that.
Yeah.
I
think if we lose Solanke, then it will. So I think on that I put 8th because I'm ever the optimist.
Do you want to tell everyone the team you predict yourself to finish above or not?
In my defense, I have them utterly capitulating in that because I kind of got to 8th and I was like, nuts, I haven't put Liverpool in. So yeah, I don't think that's likely. But there's always going to be one of those clubs that I had in that top 8 that dropped down, right? Because I think I had Villa, Newcastle as well up there. So who knows? Maybe one of them will drop down.
I literally message you. I really don't gamble anymore. I just straight away. Do you want to wager on that, mate? Bournemouth above
I did
Liverpool.
caveat it. I did caveat it.
You know, when I put my tweet out and go, can we have some outlandish predictions for the season? I need you to reply, Bournemouth to finish above Liverpool. Do it, mate.
Okay, I'll do it.
I'll buy you a beer for sure if that happens. Yeah, look, it is. I think you, West Ham, Brighton, Palace. I feel like I'm grouping you just above the rest. Like I don't particularly see like Fulham or Wolves in trouble this year, but I think personally, I'm grouping you just a little bit above. That might change if Solanke goes though,
I think
because
it just it all
you're
comes down
taking
to
that
who we
guarantee
replace.
of goals away, right?
100%. 100%. I think eighth becomes a very ambitious without Solanke.
Okay, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but I know people do want to know about NSU now.
Yep.
What's your thoughts, mate?
So I think he's been brought in as that um as the plan B basically to push Solanke initially. I do think he's brought in as a safety net as well, so that if again when I said I think we've been planning for this since January, I think Unal was part of that plan to make sure that we have an established striker that has come in and has done that period of adjustment um to Iriola's tactics and all of that we kind of saw with the first 10 games. So Unal has been through that. We have a safety net that if we go out and we buy Santi Jimenez or someone like that
Fine.
that's at Feyenoord, he's going to have to come in and learn how to do the system. You can, if you've got Unal, you can start him while that happens, and
Integrating.
then you
Yeah.
go and integrate. And realistically, if you look at how we attack the transfer market, the player that we sign or would sign in that instance is going to be 21, 22, 23. And you need to have that established player, which now definitely is. When he was at is it Getafe? He was he was right up there in the scoring charts of La Liga. So it's frustrating that he's picked up this toe injury that meant he missed out on the Euros, unfortunately, and he's not had a preseason up. But I do think once he comes in, I think he's going to be very much pushing, particularly if Solanke goes.
So to clarify, he's not fit at the moment.
No, so he's had surgery on his big toe, I think it was. So he
Right.
picked up an injury in the Turkish pre-Euros camp. So at the moment, he hasn't played a minute of preseason football.
So I mean, because what will alert people is you've got this scenario again. The big man might leave. He's played just over 300 minutes so far in the Premier League.
Hmm.
2 goals scored, 4 assists. So 6 attacking returns in 317 minutes.
Yep.
It's not a joke. Even if just it was the 2 goals, you go, okay, that's not too bad. And the 2 goals, by the way, that's an underperformance. His XG over those 317 minutes, 2.84.
Yeah. I've
So people are
been
going to look at that. Oh, and João Pedro might be struggling for game week 1. You go, bang, solution.
I do think if the cards fall, as you say, and okay, let's say Solanke goes Monday morning, and it becomes clear that we are not going to sign a player for Forest, I think Unal becomes an option. I don't think we would start with Jebbison in that instance because I still think he goes out on loan somewhere. I think it's too early for him in the Premier League, and I think what we've been doing in the preseason is giving him a good look to understand where he is. But I do think that the plan always with him was a championship loan, which is a very exciting talent. I'm really pleased we got him for 1.5 million or whatever. But yeah, I think at that point, now if we get in, if we hear that he's fit, is a great option. I think he's only 5.5 as
He
well.
is 5.5, yeah.
So presuming we haven't signed someone, he would be in my team. He would be the striker.
But we're not sure he's fit, right?
No,
So he hasn't played in pre-season at all. I
as of
think
as of today.
at this level now, considering he's not someone who is has been a regular starter anyway, you got to get some minutes in there before you just throwing him in start for
100%.
opening game of the season. So I think you'd have to see him at the weekend.
Yes.
I think on Jebbison, I certainly accept and take your point. I had a conversation with Matt Samuel. We said Ross Stewart might be the best 4.5. And I looked at that today and thought, well, sure, it might be. Daniel Jebbison has obviously joined you. But the conclusion I came to was if Unal's not fit, if Solanke goes, you not just play Semenyo up front.
Yeah. I can't disagree with that. Or I mean, we've got other options that are attacking minded as well. Like Sinistera, he could quite happily play up there, right? Even Kluivert has played up there for us in the past. Yeah, I just think it would be unfair to Jebbison's development to not loan him out before the start of the season.
Okay, so if people are looking for a 4.5, you kind of firm no on Daniel Jebbison then.
Yeah, I expect him to go out. I think that's always been the plan. Now,
Okay,
again, if Solanke goes last minute and he hasn't gone, then maybe. But
he'll stay. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. So under that circumstance, is that a fair theory then? Say that someone like Semenyo could end up starting up front
yeah,
against Forest.
yeah. I can't disagree with that. I can't say I would overly like it. I think Semenyo is better coming in from the wing, rather than being that sort of pressing forward. Just he's better with the pace and sort of with the ball at his feet than trying to press like Solanke does.
Yeah,
He
get
can't
it.
do that role. But I mean, again, I think he's also 5.5 and a
Yeah,
midfielder. So, I mean, that gets fairly tasty as well, doesn't it? If all of a sudden we've got an out of position forward at
you've
5.5.
you've got three 5.5s in there at the moment. Semenyo, Kluivert, and
Tavernier.
Tavernier. I think had a more difficult season, but has been a player that many of us have flirted with. I think it is the right term for fantasy because many of us have
Yeah.
flirted, but most of us haven't actually gone there. I think historically. Have you got a preference of those three?
So what I will say is Kluivert has also been injured in pre-season.
Right, so it's not him.
So it's not him. It will be him when he's back. I think he is the ultimate. He's ultimately the player that is at the sort of tip of that midfield spear, but he hasn't played a minute as far as I'm aware of preseason. He's definitely been injured, and there's been everyone. That's obviously again with like with Solanke. When you see injuries, everyone goes, "Oh, hang on, what's happening here?" That isn't the case. I haven't seen any rumours of him, but yeah, I think at the moment. So in the preseason game that we played last weekend, um, Sinistera was in that role, in that sort of just behind. It was behind Jebbison, um,
Okay.
in the sort of number 10, I guess. And actually, he did score.
So your preference, if I said you pick one in 5.5, you're just going to go no, James. I'm going to go 5.0 Sinistera.
I'm leaning towards Sinistera, although that's being said, Scott has been improving as well, and he was on all the set pieces. So I feel like we're in a not dissimilar point to where we were last year, of where there's a couple of midfielders, and
So
it's
you're
sort
telling
of
me you and I sat here this time last year and you had this, we knew that you had this brilliant run of fixtures coming up after this really tough start. And you had all these players at this price. And I think a lot of them were five, a lot of them. And it doesn't feel like there's many players at 5.0 this year. And we went, by the time we get there, we'll know which one. And the last time you come on Clash of Correspondence, we went, we still don't know which one, at
yeah.
the end of the
I,
season.
I think Semenyo is the best of the lot there, but then the next tier is have what is a watching brief. It may My gut says it'll be one of Sinistera and or Scott. I feel like Scott is now as he had a bit of a he didn't quite live up to the expectations we hoped for last year. I think that will change this time around. I've just watching him in pre-season, he feels like he's ready and has sort of adapted to the system a little bit more.
There
So,
isn't
and again was on all the set pieces.
there aren't many options at 5.0. There's a couple of exciting ones potentially in like Oscar Bob
Yeah.
and Morgan Rogers. Do you think Sinistera will start?
I think at the moment, yeah, on he's in my lineup for versus Forest
You
for
you
sure.
were about to say 100% and you thought twice about it.
Yeah, just because who knows what happens if Solanke goes and then we have a load of money. But at where we sit today, yes, the Kluivert injury and it adds credence to that as well.
And I guess what you also have to do with a 5.5 suddenly is obviously you're comparing them with, and there's now a number we've learned this week, a number of really good 5.5 options. Does Semenyo or Tavernier come out at the top of that list? Probably
Yeah.
not, judging by the look on your face.
No, I mean, looking so the where I put my personal team, I haven't got any of the Bournemouth midfield options as it stands. I just think that is a little bit cloudy. What I have got, other than Solanke, is I have got Zabani.
Okay. So I take it for you, he's the best of the 4.5 defensive options, therefore.
Yeah. Until we know what's happening with Howson and where he sits, I can see him or Senesi playing alongside Zabani. So Zabani is the man for me.
Okay. No love for Kirkes?
Yes, but there's been a lot of sniffing around him as well this summer. So it wouldn't surprise me unless that something happens there as well. I mean, I'm a big Kirkes fan. I think he had a very good Euros as well. But I just think he could end up being moved out, particularly when we saw Atara that was starting to really. He looked quite good, actually, frankly, at left back, and he looked a little bit more defensively assured than
He played the
Kirkes
first
did.
half at our place in December, and he was brilliant in that position.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed if we didn't sign another left back. Howson as well can play left-sided sort of as well. I wouldn't rule out, and I've been poo-pooed a little bit on Twitter, that we end up kind of going back to a 3 at the back with those 3 of Zabani, Howson, and Senesi as well, with wing backs in certain circumstances. I don't think that would be how we set up day to day.
Just on that, if you went that way, who would play right wing back in your opinion?
You would probably play Tavernier.
Yeah, I thought you might say that. And then you can shove it to a 4 with and without the ball if that's what you want to do. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because Kirkes natural to play that position, I think, on the left-hand side.
Yes. Yeah. I do think we buy a right back this summer, though.
Okay. Noted. I'm going to presume you're going to buy a goalkeeper as well, are you? And you're going to really upset the small percentage of Neto owners at the moment, aren't you?
Yeah, I think the 2 positions that I've heard from all the journalists has been right back and goalkeeper, subject to everyone staying. So I think those are the 2 positions. We've been linked to a few over the past few days, probably similar names to the other teams that want goalkeepers. So like Ramsdale's as an example.
Ramsdale obviously played for you before.
Yep.
So is that a help or a hindrance, do we think, if that's who you decide?
Oh, I mean, I would love him. I would absolutely adore him to come back. And I think, again, he would be worth, somewhere between 6 and 10 points to us, which I think would be very good, particularly if we can get a loan to buy or something like that.
Okay. Neto avoid. Zabani, your 4.5 defensive choice. If you want money enabling midfielders, sounds like Sinistera. And FPL, very bizarrely, have not got a lot wrong this year, but they've decided that nobody is going to own Marcus Senesi this season. Why have they done that? 5 million. Didn't we all suffer enough pain, Neil, when we owned him around the doubles?
Yeah, I think that's bizarre that they put him
It's a
at
strange
5,
one.
but that's it. Like as particularly with the Howson signing, I think he's more likely to give way than Zabani. We've just given Zabani a huge new contract, and I think he is going to be the next year's Solanke, where the big clubs are sniffing around him. I think he's going right to the top in terms of centre backs.
Okay, good stuff. We didn't discuss fixtures actually. What do you make of them?
Better start than last year, where we had sort of a real.
It couldn't be worse, but it looks fairly challenging again, Neil, I must say.
Yeah, I mean, as we've discussed, so I've just got it down here. Forest away is a fixture that we always like historically. Then we've got Newcastle at home. Now that game in particular is going to be a big game for us as a club. So that's our 125th anniversary game.
And Eddie Howe coming back.
And so, which I know that you can't request teams for fixtures, but
no, you can't, Neil. I told you that.
I know, but it's too for me.
I want to play
too,
Manchester City. Never.
Well, yeah, okay, but I just think it's too convenient that Eddie Howe is potentially there for that game. but whatever. Whoever it is, thank you, I guess. Everton away, that's always going to be difficult. But what I think we have this year, which we perhaps didn't have before, is what I felt last year is we almost you'd have a run of games and then you'd have a City, and that would just kill bits of momentum off. Whereas I feel like we kind of have big six teams in little chunks. So you have a 4-game stretch. I can't remember where it is in the season, where you've got
Got like Arsenal, Villa,
wait,
City together. Arsenal, City both
yeah,
at home, 8-10, with Villa away in the middle of that.
yeah. But there are like if you look at it, and there's going to be some yellows in there, but there's sort of a 10-game period. I think it's about game week just after that, so game week 10. I think to sort of the FA Cup window isn't awful, is fairly good. I would imagine we balance out quite well in that period.
FA Cup window.
Well, the first week of January.
Oh, you said game week 10 and then you said FA Cup, Neil. Sorry, that threw me
So
somewhat.
I mean between those two.
Yeah, I
so
mean
the
you've
start of
got
November.
Chelsea and Newcastle away in mid-January.
Oh yeah, so I mean before that. So I'm looking at from game week 11 to
Brentford away till game week 20, which is the
Mm,
final game before the FA Cup third round, correct?
yeah. So
That's a
that
really
looks
good
like
10-game run.
yeah, and then I think we've got a similar sort of thing towards the end of the season as well. But then our last 5 games are absolute pain.
So it largely feels like we need Solanke clarity or no. If he did go, you're clearly going to invest. So it would make, if you went for an Unal, if he's going to play, or a Semenyo because he's OOP, something that could be short term. I think with the fixtures you've got, there are probably better 4.5 defensive options to start with than Bournemouth. But
Yep.
very much
Yeah,
come back and have a look around about what for you, it's probably going to be from game week 11. There's a number you come into runs at that time. Like Wolves is similar. I mean, Wolves' start is worse than yours, I would say, actually. But then they come into a brilliant run from sort of game week 10. So you can come around and have a look at the two teams, perhaps from now. Before we finish, Neil, let's do a go on. I'll put you on the spot here. Predicted game week 1 lineup. And I won't giggle when you say the last name.
So I have got Neto. So this is purely based on who we got today.
Yep.
No ins and outs. I've got Neto, Adam Smith, Sinesai, Zabani Kirkes. Then I've got Cook, Christie, Semenyo. I have got Kluivert. That might end up being Sinistera. And then I would have, in that instance, I've got Sinistera, but it might be Tavernier if Kluivert is not fit. And then I have got Solanke.
Joe, just clarify that 3 in midfield again for us.
So the 5 midfielders that I've got are Lewis Cook, Ryan Christie, Semenyo, Kluivert, and Sinistera.
Yeah.
If Kluivert isn't fit, I would have Tavernier.
Do you think? Sorry. So Sinistera, you think plays either way, plays on the
Yes.
left or moves inside if Kluivert's unavailable? Okay,
Yeah, I
that's
think
interesting.
He's played a lot in the preseason. He had quite a good copper from what I understand as well. And now we bought him as well and paid, reasonable money for him. I don't see why we wouldn't. And I think every time he's been fit, we played him. He just wasn't particularly fit last year, unfortunately. But he is fit now.
Okay. One to watch at that 5 million bracket, I think, because there's not too many. Good stuff, Neil. I wish you the very best of luck over the forthcoming season. And I hope any negotiations that the two of us have as football clubs over the forthcoming days end amicably and also in my favour, and with you taking a lot of money from my football club. Right. Next up in Correspondent Week, I'm going to ask Neil this question because Neil's one who travels around a bit. If you had to go from Bournemouth to Leicester, have you got to go through London? Is it the only way it can be done?
Talking on train or?
Yeah.
Oh, train, yeah, 100%.
You have to. Yeah, that's what I found. So, and what's closer? Is it Bournemouth or is it Folkestone to the stadium?
Folkestone.
Okay. We'll go from there then. We'll go back to London and we'll get Northern Line and we'll go to King's Cross. We'll go St Pancras International. We'll get a train to to Leicester and go take the 20-odd minute walk to the King Power. Next up on the penultimate episode of Correspondent Week is Aaron Lagor on Leicester City. Neil, thank you so much. Very best of luck for the season, my friend. Cue music, please. Man sharp.